came here to Denver in order to spend some time in front of the legislature to tell them my perspective on why we need a bill that protects religious liberty. From my perspective, the whole issue of religious liberty, not just here in Colorado, but nationwide, is being compromised. It's been compromised by the Obergefell decision. It's being compromised in individual decisions. Even the things that have gone against bakers and printers and those things with respect to weddings are steps in the direction of saying no one in the country can quote unquote discriminate against a person because of gender or same-sex marriage types of questions. So I came here to say to the legislature, wait a second. It's time for us to take a step back and recognize that we are moving in that direction. Whether you want to admit it or not, we're moving in that direction. We have got to get some brakes on this, or none of us will be able to preach the gospel with clarity, especially with respect to the concept of marriage. We will be held to be liable under governmental regulations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Stan Lightfoot. I'm the pastor of Rustic Hills Baptist Church in Colorado Springs. I've served in that capacity for about the last 23 years, and prior to that was an assistant pastor in the North Glen area. But I represent myself in this testimony. I'm a Baptist pastor. My forebears throughout the history of the American people have a storied and well-deserved reputation for standing for religious freedom, even at great personal risk. Roger Williams, who stood against the church-state alliance in the Massachusetts colony, was banished for his efforts. A number of the Virginia Baptists, when Virginia was a colony, refused to pay the tax to support the state church and suffered imprisonment for their principled stand. The Danbury, Connecticut Baptists corresponded with Thomas Jefferson on the issue of the state-church relationship in the Constitution and happily did not suffer official consequences. Among others, these all paved the way for the religious freedoms we enjoy as Americans today. The issue then was, will the government support one religion over another at the expense of and to the detriment of those who do not submit to the favored government line? The eventual answer was a resounding no. The issue today is, will the government favor a group of people who seek to impose their view of religion at the expense of the sincerely held beliefs of others who do not share their opinion? This bill seeks to ensure that religious freedom will not be infringed on the basis of gender or sexual preference. Now, it's been suggested that this bill is not necessary, but I would have you consider the following. In Hutchinson, Kansas, an ordinance was proposed in 2012 that, had it stood, would have required churches and religious nonprofits to perform same-sex marriages on the basis of broadened public accommodation laws. Christian wedding chapels in Iowa and Idaho have been shuttered because they refuse to perform same-sex marriages. The mayor of Houston subpoenaed sermons from churches whose pastors opposed her strong agenda of homosexual accommodation. Pastors in other parts of the world, including places that would be similar to us in their governmental structure, Sweden and Scotland and Canada, have been fined and or imprisoned for taking a stand on this issue. The Canadian Supreme Court has ruled that the biblical references to homosexuality are, quote, hate speech. And many in positions of governmental authority in the U.S. concur. In Obergefell v. Hodges last year, the Supreme Court found that people with religious objections to same-sex marriage had the right to advocate and to teach their words, but carefully avoided the use of the term exercise, opening the door to official abuse and many additional court rulings to clarify the decision. Solicitor General Donald Verrilli, arguing the government's position, admitted that tax-exempt status for religious institutions was, quote, certainly going to be an issue. On the basis of this and voluminous other evidence, I believe the long and honorable history of religious freedom in the United States is in jeopardy. For that reason, I would like to strongly encourage this committee to move H.S. 1611-23 forward. Please protect freedom of religion in Colorado. Thank you.
Tell your pastor and tell your state representatives that the religious freedom of those who believe in biblical marriage is at risk. And we need to take a stand, or we're going to be out on the outside looking in. And tell your pastors as well, it's time for us to take a hard look at our church documents, our doctrinal statement, our policy statements, to make sure that we are protecting ourselves to the very best of our ability, because the state is not going to protect you. This bill will probably fail. In all likelihood, it'll fail in this committee. And the result of that is, once again, the door is left open. And we need to talk to the people that are decision makers in churches and in legislative bodies and say to them, look, we got to protect this, because our American values, not to mention our Christian values, are at grave risk.